Hey everybody, this is John from /bash, and today I am bringing you another Entitled Parents Reddit video. If you are new to the channel, then subscribe and ring that notifications bell so you don't miss out on the fun. In our first story, I got out of the hospital and entitled mother sent me right back. Let's jump right in. Today's cast: an entitled mom, my dad, a neighbor mom, me, and my entitled mom's cool boyfriend. I just got out of the hospital for extensive knee surgery, and walking out the door of the hospital reminded me of this story. Important things to note: I have a severe allergy to cashews. It's bad enough that 1/100th of one will kill me if I'm not treated properly and quickly. Nowadays, I always make sure to have an EpiPen on me at all times, but when this story took place, I was a little more forgetful about it. I was 9, leave me alone, and didn't always have it. I have asthma, which can be a pretty lousy combination with anaphylaxis. At the time of this story, my dad was working for a company that treated him like garbage and wouldn't give him time off for anything except medical emergencies, pretty much. This story starts about 4 days before my 10th birthday. Here's the story. A week before my birthday, my dad's boss told him he was going to San Francisco for work stuff. We lived in Denver at the time, which meant my dad was going to miss my birthday. It was upsetting, but I understood, and he said we'd have a party once he got back. While he was gone, my brother and I were staying with entitled mother. At the time, we knew she was a little entitled, but my dad trusted her to take care of us. On day 3 of my dad's trip, my brother and I were playing in their living room when entitled mother offered us some granola bars as a snack. At the time, I was young and wasn't very cautious, so I didn't always read the ingredients for things I was eating. Unfortunately, there were cashews in the granola bar, so when I took the first bite, I started to feel it pretty quickly afterwards. Within minutes, I was throwing up everywhere in severe pain and my throat was closing up. And, as if it couldn't get worse, that was when I realized I had forgotten my EpiPen. Then the panic and closing airways triggered an asthma attack, and I also didn't have my inhaler. So at that point, cool boyfriend calls an ambulance and I pass out on the floor. The paramedics were able to keep me from dying of the combination of anaphylactic shock and asthma attack, but I did end up slipping into a coma for 11 days. This meant I was in a coma on my birthday, but I guess that was probably pretty low on the list of concerns, considering they weren't 100% sure I was going to make it out of the coma. So a week after my birthday, I finally wake up. At first, I was fairly calm about waking up in a hospital until I found out that I had been in a coma for 11 days, at which point I started panicking and almost gave myself another asthma attack. Anyway, they kept me there for a few days just to make sure I was okay and it was safe for me to go home. So we finally get home, and as soon as I walk in, I see my brother, my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle, my 2 cousins, entitled mother, and neighbor mother and her kids, who my brother and I are good friends with, as well as a big sign that reads, "Happy birthday and welcome back to the land of the living." They had planned a surprise birthday party for me once they found out I was out of the coma, so we went about doing birthday party things and hanging out. I got some questions from my brother and cousins about the coma, while neighbor mother bakes my cake. However, the only important thing that was happening at this time was the following conversation between entitled mother and neighbor mother. Man, that must have been terrifying for him to go into that coma. I mean, imagine having to be that careful about everything you eat. Oh, don't tell me you buy all of that. What? He was clearly faking it to get attention. Everyone knows that asthma and allergies aren't real. Both of those are very real and very serious problems. Whatever. You sheeple are just too stupid to see through the government's lies. Then entitled mother just wandered off. I feel it's important to note that at this time, the birthday cake had just been put in the oven, and this conversation happened in the living room, which did not have a line of sight into the kitchen. After a while, the cake finally finished baking and we all congregated in the dining room to eat it. So everyone sang happy birthday to me, and my aunt cut the cake and gave everyone a slice. I was about to take the first bite when the luckiest thing that could have happened. I dropped my fork on the floor. At this point, I wanted to act all grown up and solve my own problems, decided I'd go into the kitchen and clean the fork myself. Right as I finish and start walking back out to the dining room when I hear my dad yell, "What the flip did you just say?" I run out to see what's going on and see my dad standing up staring daggers at entitled mother while she cowered in fear of him. It was for his own good. It turned out that after the conversation between entitled mother and neighbor mom, entitled mother had snuck into the kitchen and poured most of a bag of mixed nuts that she had brought with her into the cake. My dad slams his hand down on the table. How the flip is that for his own good? Entitled mother starts to gain some confidence as she doesn't see a problem with what's happening. Well, if he had eaten the cake without knowing they were there, he wouldn't have been able to fake a reaction because he wouldn't have known that there was anything in the cake to react to. What the actual flip is wrong with you? I was trying to prove to you, sheeple, that I knew inviting you here was a mistake. I figured it was good for the boys to have you in their lives, but you've made it abundantly clear that it is not. So what are you saying? I'm saying, get the flip out of my house and stay the flip away from my kids. You can't do that. They're my kids too. That's right, everyone. The entitled mother was my actual mom. Not after what you just pulled, they're not. And if you want to take this to court, I'll make sure that you aren't even allowed in the same state as them. Now, get the flip out of my house before I call the cops. You just wait until my father hears about this. Her dad is very wealthy, so I think she was expecting him to help her get custody of my brother and me. We found out later that not only did her boyfriend break up with her and kick her out of his house, but when her dad found out about what she did, he refused to let her live with him, stopped giving her money, and said that if she took my dad to court, he would support my dad. As you can expect, she never took us to court. And as for the rest of the party, we just bought a new cake because nobody wanted to take the time to bake another one. We also decided to just throw out the pan we had used for the first one because she had put so many nuts in it that we were worried about it contaminating anything we put in it after that. Story 2. Won't you do something about this tiger? So I saw some of the posts about entitled parents doing stupid things at zoos and aquariums, and I remembered this story. Trigger warning, tiny gore. It's a little more lighthearted than some stories though. This happened at London Zoo. A little background. The real star of this story is JJ, a beautiful male Sumatran tiger. He now lives in a zoo in Denmark as he's part of an important breeding program. His mate at London Zoo was Melody, who you may have heard was sadly killed by another tiger when she was moved from London Zoo. JJ and Melody had recently had a second litter of cubs. Now, the first litter had tragically died when they all got in the enclosure pool and drowned, so when Melody became pregnant again, it was decided that they would be separated and Melody and the kids would be placed in a baby-proofed enclosure next to JJ's. Bless him. He knew she was behind the fence and walked along it chuffing at her. He just wanted his lady. Anyway, that wasn't entirely relevant, but I wanted to give you guys a little background on JJ. My friends and I had already been to see him earlier in the day, and we had been frankly captivated by his beauty. As the day was drawing to a close and we were approaching closing time, we plotted a route out of the zoo that would take us past the tiger enclosure again, because one of my friends is a huge tiger lover, and to be honest, we'd all kind of fallen for JJ's charm. So we come back to the tiger exhibit with every intention of lingering, but we find a small group of people, including a zoo employee, and a slight air of excitement maybe. JJ had something in his mouth. He walked into the sheltered part of his enclosure, lay down and began to chew, looking incredibly pleased with himself. It's really impressive he managed to catch it, I heard someone say. And then we realized it was a small bird, probably a sparrow. Yeah, that is impressive actually, given the size of him and the size of it. As JJ chewed, a little roll of something pink and string-like tumbled out of his magnificent jaws. The little tangle of bird intestines dropped onto his massive paw. He continued chewing happily. A small girl was watching and turned to her mother. "Mummy, why is the tiger eating worms?" The mother looked flabbergasted. How dare this apex predator be a predator and eat in front of her child? She turned to the zoo employee and said, "Aren't you going to do something about that?" The employee had a look of shock and bewilderment as well as an awkward, confused smile. I like to imagine the thoughts that went through his head as he processed what she said. After a pause, he asked, "You mean, take it away from him?" "Yes." After establishing what she meant and that, no, she wasn't joking, the employee simply replied with, he's a tiger." I think she might have been angered by this response if it wasn't for the other people gathered, my friends and I included, all laughing at this. I think maybe our laughter might have sort of embarrassed the entitled mom into realizing just how stupid her demand was. The employee seemed to relax and elaborate. "Look, anything that goes into that enclosure is simply put fair game, including the birds and including me. He can keep it." Not much else really happened after this, so I think the silly entitled mother just took her child away, but the rest of us spent a few more minutes enjoying the sight of JJ munching on his gory little prize. This is John from /bash. Please hit that like button to help with the mighty YouTube algorithm and subscribe if you are new. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.